after what was a very, very disappointing weekend, difficult Saturday for the Buffaloes out in Los Angeles. They return to Boulder. They take on another team from the Los Angeles area. UCLA comes to town. They're ranked 25th, but this UCLA team hasn't quite lived up to the preseason expectations. A lot of people, myself included, thought this was a top 10, borderline top 5 team coming into the season.
Yeah, we talked a little bit on the radio show how I said I'm mad at UCLA because they made me look bad by not being nearly as good as we thought they were going to be. It just seems like they just haven't clicked and put together a full game, really, besides maybe against Arizona State, where you kind of thought they had broken out.
Did in that
game, and kind of blew out a team that it was a close spread, if I remember correctly. So other than that game, it just seems like every week it's something for them that kind of falls apart. Obviously, the Buffs are going to be hoping they can exploit whatever that is this week.
Yeah, UCLA doesn't rank in the top half of the Pac-12 in either total offense or total defense. They rank last in the conference in sacks and sacks allowed, so that's probably the reason why they're not having the success. They do have playmakers. Brett Hundley ranks third in the conference in pass efficiency, still one of the better quarterbacks, and what makes him so difficult is that you can contain the play, but he can just take off and scramble and pick up 30, 40 yards in a run. He's that athletic, and he's not even looked upon that much to carry the load in terms of being a dual threat like a BJ Danker type, but when he does run, it's usually very effective.
Yeah, he looks kind of like too big to be as quick as he really is, and that's the thing that's most impressive for me about him is once he gets going, he can really, really go. And I think from a CU perspective, that's got to be your biggest worry, just because, it's so disheartening as a defense when you can, get him into a 3rd and long and you feel like you have everyone covered, and all of a sudden he breaks off, 25 yards and they're in your territory. And that seems to be a real confidence killer for defenses. So I think CU needs to keep a spy on him, and if they can keep a spy on him that can keep him contained, that will really help them in this game.
Mike McIntyre talked quite a bit at his press luncheon this week about Ishmael Adams, the dynamic returner for UCLA, also plays cornerback for them as well. If the Colorado team that showed up at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum last Saturday shows up at Folsom Field this Saturday, they're going to get trounced. There's no question about that. But we've seen at times under Mike McIntyre, this team has been able to bounce back. Last year, they get completely killed at Washington. It looks like a football team that can't compete against anybody. Then they come back here to home, and they beat Cal. Now that Cal team was pretty decimated by injuries. I'm not saying that UCLA is in the same situation, but this team has shown some ability to bounce back, especially when they come back to these friendly confines.
Yeah, and that's something that Judah Parker talked a little bit about in the press conferences. They've prided themselves upon trying to protect this home field, which obviously they haven't been successful at. But it seems like, they always come out with a little more fire. They make a few more plays for the fans. And Mike McIntyre talked about how he doesn't think that the confidence is as shot as it might seem. He said, I didn't have to come out here and yell at anyone to get them fired up or anything like that. They showed up and they went back to work just as if it was any other week. And I think from a Colorado perspective, that's encouraging to hear that, no one was hanging their heads this week.
I alluded to the fact that UCLA's offensive line has performed pretty poorly this season. My pick to click is going to go off that, and I'm going to pick Derek McCartney as my pick to click. 4 quarterback sacks in the first half of his redshirt freshman season. A guy I feel like can create some havoc back there. And they're going to obviously need to get a pass rush going against Brett Hundley. Who's your pick to click? Yeah,
I'm going to pick a guy who in the Tuesday press conference said he's coming off of the worst game of his career, and that's Sefo Lufau. And I thought that was pretty interesting to hear him say and kind of take credit for that. And really, he put a lot of blame on himself and says he takes it really hard to let his team down like that. Based off of that, I think he comes into this week of practice and really cracks down, watches a little extra film, does all the little things he can to bounce back. You talked about how that UCLA doesn't get much pressure on the quarterback. I think that's going to be very beneficial to him if the offensive line can protect him back there, give him some time, make a few reads, and so I expect Sefo to go for 300 and 3 TDs.
I've watched UCLA pretty closely this season, and for a split second, I thought about picking Colorado to win this football game, but after what did happen out in Southern California last week, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I'm still going to predict a close game here, though. I think Colorado keeps us within about a score throughout the game, and again, kind of falls themselves into a disappointing ending in a somewhat close game. I'm going to say UCLA wins this football game 38-31.
I want to ask you real quick, if Colorado does, lose this game 38-31, that means they probably had a few chances to win it. What do you expect the reaction coming out of this game if that happens?
the reaction from the players and coaches is going to be the same. They showed extreme disappointment every time there's a loss, no matter if they show a lot of fight. I think the fan base, some will be kind of split. I think some fans will accept it as not necessarily moral victory, but a fact that at least we're not getting blown out like we did the week before, and have some hope to win a game here before the season ends. But I think there's going to be that other half of the fan base that at this point needs to see a win before they feel good about anything that happens on the field for this program.
Yeah, Mike McIntyre talks about you work so hard, you work so hard, you work so hard. You want to see a tangible, reward for that. I don't think the Buffs are going to get that this weekend. Not quite as close. I think it's going to be a game that's at least entertaining to watch. I'm going to say UCLA 41, Colorado 28. I don't think that there's going to be that point where, kind of like I hypothetically said in your game, where Colorado had some chances to win it. I think it's one of those games where they just keep it from getting away at all times. Score that one touchdown that keeps it from turning into a blowout, and just kind of stay in it the whole game without ever actually competing for the win.
A noon kickoff. We've had a great fall here in Colorado. Hopefully it's another beautiful day, and hopefully you can make it out to Folsom Field to watch the game.